In the high-stakes corridors of the Pentagon, they call it the digital veto. On February 27, 2026, the artificial intelligence landscape didn't just shift, it fractured. Anthropic, the $380 billion giant behind the Claude models, was officially designated a supply chain risk to national security by the Department of War. This isn't a technical glitch, it's a full-blown constitutional crisis between the sovereign power of the United States and the ethical guardrails of Silicon Valley. For the first time in history, the U.S. government has effectively blacklisted one of its own premier tech companies, not for a security breach, but for a refusal to let the military use its brain. The 5:01 p.m. deadline. The ultimatum was delivered on a Tuesday during a tense meeting between Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. The demand was simple: remove the contractual red lines from Claude. The Pentagon wanted unrestricted access for all lawful purposes. Anthropic had a different view. They refused to budge on two non-negotiable points: mass domestic surveillance. They will not allow Claude to be used to analyze bulk data on American citizens, think geolocation, financial records, and web history purchased from data brokers, and fully autonomous weapons. They refuse to let their models be the brain of a weapons system that can decide to kill without a human pulling the trigger. When the 5:01 p.m. deadline passed on Friday, the retaliation was swift. President Trump took to social media calling Anthropic left-wing nutjobs and accusing them of trying to strong-arm the Department of War. By sunset, every federal agency was ordered to immediately cease using Anthropic technology. The supply chain risk nuclear option. The most shocking part of this news isn't the canceled contract, it's the designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk. Historically, this label is reserved for foreign adversaries like Huawei or Kaspersky. Applying it to an American company is unprecedented. The consequences are devastating. It's not just that the government won't buy Claude, it's that no company that does business with the military is allowed to work with Anthropic. If you are a defense contractor like Lockheed Martin or Palantir and you use Claude for your internal HR or coding, you now have a choice: ditch Anthropic or lose your government contracts. This is a deliberate attempt to economically starve the company into submission. Why constitutional AI is under fire. At the heart of this conflict is Anthropic's unique architecture, constitutional AI. Unlike other models that are aligned through human feedback, RLHF, Claude is trained on a written list of principles, a constitution. The Pentagon's argument is that this constitution is essentially a private law written by an unelected CEO. Secretary Hegseth argued that the terms of service of Anthropic's effective altruism will never outweigh the safety or the lives of American troops. But Anthropic's defense is even chillier. They argue that current AI models are not reliable enough for war. During the January capture of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, military commanders reportedly grew frustrated when the AI began questioning the human rights implications of the mission. The military interpreted this as the AI being disloyal. Anthropic interprets it as the AI being honest about its own limitations. The OpenAI opportunism? As Anthropic was being marched out the door, OpenAI was being ushered in. Just hours after the ban, Sam Altman announced a massive deal to deploy OpenAI models on classified military networks. The industry is currently in an uproar. A petition signed by hundreds of employees at both Google and OpenAI accuses the government of divide-and-conquer tactics. Critics argue that OpenAI's deal is safety theater, that they've agreed to the same red lines on paper but without the hard-coded technical refusals that Anthropic built into Claude. The survival of the safest. Anthropic has vowed to fight this in court, calling the supply chain designation legally unsound. They have 6 months to phase out their technology from the government systems, but the damage to their upcoming IPO could be permanent.
Ironically, this cancellation has turned Anthropic into a folk hero for privacy advocates. Downloads for the Claude app have outpaced ChatGPT for the first time as users flock to the model that stood up to the machine. But in the world of 2026, where AI speed determines national survival, being the ethical choice might not be enough to stay in business. If the government can successfully blacklist an American company for its values, the alignment of AI will no longer be decided by researchers. It will be decided by the commander-in-chief. Is this the necessary price of national security, or is it the beginning of a digital McCarthyism? See you next time.